Hello, my name is Joshua Villarreal, and I'd like to thank you for stopping by and watching my presentation on the design model I created. It is called the Facilitated Technology Instructional Design Model. And through this model, what I hope to show was that students will be allowed to creatively find solutions to problem-based learning with a strong emphasis being, of course, on technology. Now, what that looks like is first let's look at the instructional goals of why I created this model. The instructional goals, of course, is to promote critical thinking in the classroom, to stay away from just the textbook aspect, and the hope is that students will learn technology-based contents through actual experiments and applying trial and error type learning. The instructor in this model would act more as a facilitator after the basic content has been provided. And the hope eventually is that students will become more creative in their project-based learning, but also for the instructor to stay away from detailed rubrics that limit creativity. I know that in the real world, no matter where you work, that there are some type of rubrics. You cannot build a house without having some type of necessary rubric or guidelines to follow. But at the same time, we do hope to promote a creative outcome so that not everything is so the same or cookie cutter, for lack of a better word. So the instructional goals here, as you can see on the screen: critical thinking, hands-on learning, facilitating instruction, and a big emphasis on creativity. Next, we want to look at who exactly this model was designed for. I wanted it to be for secondary students. I personally teach secondary students in 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. And so I have this designed for ages 14 to 18. And in this case, this model would be applied for students that already have had technology classes, that they have some type of background in technology. I know a lot of schools push the basic technology classes in middle school and the lower levels so that when they do get to high school, they have some type of background. And this model would slide perfectly into STEM-based schools. So many of today's classes, even with technology, they teach from textbooks. And it leaves students to just simply read the content in front of them and follow the steps. And the hope is, again, is to get back to creativity and for high school students at this point. Now, the basis for this model is I related it to the existentialist learning style. And what I recognized there was that they recognize that students simply learn differently. I know that seems kind of an understood thing, but the fact is that they do. And in this facilitated technology model, students would be able to learn differently as well as show their proficiency in different formats, that they wouldn't be so tied down to a specific test or project outcome, that they would have some freedom to show their mastery in other ways. Now, the steps of this model, there are 4 steps, as you can see here on the screen: to recognize and identify instructor expectations, the facilitated instruction, and the evaluation through presentation. I'm going to take you through those 4 steps right now. So in step 1, we're going to begin with the students being able to just simply recognize, define, and identify the goals collaboratively with the instructor. The instructor in this model does not come in, put everything up on the wall and say, here's what you're going to learn. I want the students to work with the instructor to say, look, here's the project in front of us. What do you hope to gain from this project? And in that, the instructor can provide examples of what his expectations are. And also in this step as well, the instructor would be also going over the resources that would be available to the students. And a very specific example that I've actually used and applied this model with was in my robotics class, where what we did is we discussed what the purpose of the robotics competition was. What was the end result? What was a robot needing to do to compete? And the students on their own would decide, okay, what is our goal? Is our goal necessarily to win, Or is our goal to just creatively come up with different designs for that robot? Now on to step 2, which you can see on the screen, is instructor expectations. And this step, what the instructor has a responsibility of, is to give an overview of the hardware and software that will be available. If in this case it would be something in regards to building, as with robotics or architecture, an overview of the hardware would be given, the tools that would be available, the safety of using such tools, as well as a software overview. In this model, the original expectation was that students have some background knowledge of the program, and as the instructor works through some of it, the students will get an idea of what kind of software is available for them to complete the tasks. Also, at this point, the instructor would give a brief overview of what they would like to see at the end. Not necessarily a specific 50-step rubric, but the end goal of what the instructor has in mind. An example of this is specifically an e-portfolio that students would keep and maintain a log of problems they encountered, solutions that they were able to create from those problems, and be able to maintain an e-portfolio with notes, etc., even pictures, so that it would be a part of the end presentation. And in this process, it would give them a good real-world application of the same way as an engineer would keep a notebook for an ongoing project. The third step in this would be the facilitated instruction. And this case is when the instructor does actually become simply the facilitator. Now, this is not the time for the instructor to sit back at their desk and do nothing. This is the time that the instructor takes a step back and becomes more of an observer. They walk around, and in those observations, they're able to do formative assessments and just watching what the students are doing. Are the students accomplishing something? They would be able to see the students discover their own unique way to show their knowledge of the content. And even though the students may be working on similar or even the same projects, the instructor in this step would be looking for various results, creative results. You know, an example of this would be students that have been tasked with an original video production. In my AV class, what I look for is an end result. I look for a video that has used the proper camera techniques and lighting and script writing, and is it exported in a quality that's good for what we're doing. But how they achieve that goal, I want to leave on them. You know, if they are looking for a certain effect, you know, I don't mind that they've used Final Cut Pro or After Effects. That regardless of how they got there, I just want to see that they were able to get themselves there. And a step 4, the last step, would be the evaluation through presentation. I personally feel that what students are beginning to lack in this generation is the ability to just simply stand up and speak to a crowd. And in any job, whether you are a teacher, previously to this I was an engineer, and regardless of the situation, you have to stand up and present what you're doing. And when you do that, you can't lose your audience because you're not comfortable being up there. So after their project is done, the real world application tie is that they will always need to speak in their job regardless of what it is. But I want them to not just present their project, but to talk about the problems that they encountered and the solutions that they were able to come up with. And I do want it to be a formal presentation. It's not intended for the students to stand up there and goof their way through, for lack of a better word. And a great way that I've actually used this is in my engineering class. After they created their 3D designs, they were able to actually print their designs on a 3D printer. And those designs were actually solutions to real-world problems, which really brought that tie together, that they weren't just drawing and designing, but that there was a purpose to what they were doing. And last, I just wanted to discuss my inspiration for trying to create such a model. I personally am a fan of the SAMR model. I believe that technology needs to begin to be incorporated into multiple content areas in a school, not just technology classes. And, you know, I'm hoping to create with this model a way for an instructor to do more than simply substitute and augment. I want them to redefine the way that they're teaching so that student creativity is shown, because regardless of what a student does after we have them, they're going to move into something that requires some type of technology knowledge, and getting them excited and creative about it to me is the best way to inspire them and to get them on board with this. But I was hoping that the point of this whole model was that the instructor takes a step back and realizes that students are creative on their own. They're intelligent and they can find solutions to things that even instructors may not have seen. And so I hope that with this model that technology can continue to be integrated into classrooms at a much higher, more complex level. I'd just like to thank you for watching this presentation and being here with me, and I hope that you've been inspired as well about the facilitated technology model, and I look forward to seeing this model implemented into my future classes.